We're going to talk about what I think is our 3, possibly 4 key features that when you're bow hunting and you're finding that stand location, that bow hunting stand location, what are the top 3 things that you really need to think about to make that stand maybe a 80%, a 90% stand instead of a 5 to a 2 to 5% stand, which this is going to shock you, but I would be willing to bet that most of the stand locations, that not only the stand locations that I go to, years looking back on my mistakes or helping folks tune in or better a stand location, I'm going to tell you guys that 95%, folks will say 90% of stand locations fall into that 2 to 5% chance. A production stand or a chance, right? It's very, very low. And like I always tell everybody, guys, is it's no finger pointing or no harsh words meant by this at all. But if you have a stand location that's a 2 to 5% opportunity chance, right? Stay in the house and watch college football, because you have to wait until it's perfect to hunt that stand, or you're going to burn it out because that stand just doesn't have a lot of potential to begin with, right? So hope that one really makes sense, guys. I love hunting just as much as anybody, but when I go to the stand, I want to be very proficient. I want you guys to be very proficient. So that's what leads us to today's topic. So let's dive into this one, guys. First and foremost, I don't know particular order here, but guys, this one here is very, very important, very high on the important spectrum, if you will. And the reason I touch on this, guys, is we're gonna dig into this one. Stand access determines, so access determination determines what that stand is. In other words, what wind, what thermals you're hunting that stand on. So the perfect situation is to find your access first. But let's just say this is the perimeter. The thing that you want to know, guys, before you leave the truck, when you're walking down there, you should already know what stand location, what wind, and what thermal. Maybe the thermal is a question until you get it completely figured out. But what wind you're actually looking for to hunt that stand. And what I say that is, guys, usually that determination isn't made until right here, until we find a stand. We go down, we go in, we find this huge intersection. It's a great wind. It's a great location. A lot of trails, a lot of sign. So does it fall into that best stand you should never hunt or not? You get into this location, it's just loaded with sign. Then what folks want to do is they walk around in here, they find the intersection, whether you hang a licking branch or not, whatever that case is, you find the intersection, then all of a sudden, we start looking for trees, right? We start looking for trees. What's good for where do we need to hang that stand? What tree is there so we can make that stand like a lot of the country starts thinking of those west and northwest winds and how do I make this spot good and how am I going to hunt it when that deer comes into that spot? This situation here, guys, is a big, big X. This stand location should already be figured out before you even get there. You should know before you're coming into that location that you are looking for, now this representation, right? North, west, south, and east, right? You should know if this is your access and this is where you're starting from. You should already know that stand location, guys, that you're teeing into that line of movement that you're looking for sign on. Maybe it's an intersection, but you should already know that you're looking for that southwest, south, southeast, southerly wind stand before you even get there. That is the perfect situation. Not cutting that line of travel, keeping your scent blowing it back into a non-deer area, hunting into untouched ground. In other words, you're blowing your scent back to where you came from. So then you throw thermals into it, guys. So what I do is I find this location, and if this stand location is down below my access in the line of travel, the promoted line of travel or the native line of travel or that travel that you're hunting off from is below you, It's a south wind AM sit. You can't physically change that contour. And that's what happens is folks get here, go across the line of travel, get below it, try to make it a PM situation, and it's already blueprinted. So the big topic here is, guys, is access determination. Let that property's blueprint already tell you what it is before you get there. Huge point. So the next one here, guys, that we're going to talk about is before you hang that stand, right? Once you find it, before you hang that stand, there's a big step here that I think is I'm a huge numbers guy, right? Percentage guy, right? But it's grossly overlooked. Huge. It's very seldom ever done. So what I'm getting at here, guys, with this one is before you hang that, right? You find that location, you get into that spot, you find the tree, you know that your access is clean, you get in there, you determine, okay, this is AM because that line of travel is below me, AM or PM. Let's just use AM for an example. That line of travel is below you, and you have already coined that that's an AM southerly wind, southwest, southeast situation, something out of the south. Before you hang it, guys, what you need to do is this habitat word right here is key. And the reason for that is I always tell folks is I've learned this years and years ago. A lot of stands I've hung back to days of guiding and before I was guiding. Hang that stand, the sign is there, you sit there, and he never shows up. Well, postseason scouting comes and you go to that spot and say, I'm going to figure out what's going on. What happens is, guys, you get in this location and you figure out that that habitat, maybe it's just an ash trees that emerald ash borer went through, right? Opened up some canopy. Maybe it's areas that you built. You get in here and you start walking and you find out that the habitat is actually on the wrong side of that line of travel. So it was working for him the entire time that you thought it was working for you, or you wanted it to work for you, but it wasn't working for you and him at the same location at the same time. So before you hang, walk that line of travel. Get to that point of impact, know your tree, know your access into it, get to that line of travel, guys, and walk that about 200 yards or so each way, if not more. Each way. Go to the east 200 yards, come back and go to the west. And in that walk, what you're going to determine is if this is what you're looking for, right? Because if he's cruising down through here, let's just use pre-rudder up mentality. He's cruising down through here, them AM thermals are coming out of here. He's actually scent checking that stuff at the side of his head, being very proficient. It puts you here the same time it puts him here. AM thermals horizon, he's above it. He's scent checking it. It's good for you, good for him. The wind is good in his favor and it's good in yours. Thermals as well. That's what you're looking for. But this is what I find. A lot of times we hang these stands because they're good for us, and then it never connects. And the reason it doesn't connect is, like I said, that postseason scouting determines or unveils that the habitat is just stronger. Maybe somebody went in and cut a bunch of firewood. Maybe it's a leased property, right, that had a bunch of dead ash trees. A windstorm went through, knocked a bunch of trees down. Whatever the case is, all of a sudden this daylight is on both sides of the line of travel, or it's on the wrong side of that line of travel, and it's good for him and it's not good for you. Or this case, it's good for him, but on a PM north wind is when he's going to check this situation. He's actually able to check this situation AM and PM. The problem with it is you're only able to hunt AM south winds, and he's there scent checking it on maybe PM north winds, maybe PM or AM north winds. You have to take that guesswork out of that piece of the puzzle out. Once you take the piece of that puzzle out, you'll find that there's another stand somewhere down the chain that represents what you're looking for. It puts you and him at that same location at the same time. I find a lot of folks say, okay, this is great for pre-rut and not rut, but it's not going to work. I got an early season buck that I want to target. or I'm going on a hunt, or I'm going to my lease, my hunting grounds, and I'm going to hunt early season, this isn't going to work. That's hogwash. The reason for that is, guys, is those deer will do that 365 days a year in those locations. And the reason for that is, guys, they don't know what are in these locations. They just know that they have to scent check them. In order for them to scent check them, they have to be on the downwind side of it. So it's no different in July than it is in October. The only difference is in October, they're going to do it more as a searching tool, searching for the does. They don't know what's in there, right? Like I said, they just know they have to scent check it. It could be immature bucks, could be fawns, could be the does they're looking for. Early season, they're doing it because it's a security situation. They got to go past those areas. Those areas are thicker. They can't see into them. The velvet's on. They can't push into these locations that have higher stem count. What starts happening is they're bypassing them, right? They might be going out here to the timber. They might be bedded closer to your food sources, something like that. But they're still using those locations. I'd like to share a couple of stand locations with you that I see that work and a couple that I see that don't. So let's start with the don't first. I see a lot of folks, again, is it 75, 80, 90%? It's probably north of 80 across the entire country, that this situation right here makes for a long season for a lot of folks. It's slowly turning, and we're slowly building on getting folks to understand that there's more than just a food plot, right? Food plot hunting. If you're sitting on the food plot, one thing to question, one thing to ask yourself, guys, is this. If you're sitting on the food plot, whether you did any habitat work or not, if you're sitting on that food plot, how in the early season, let's say, if he's coming to that location, the first time you sit there, you might be able to get the job done. The second time, your chances just keep going down and down and down. And the reason for that is early season, PM hunt situations, you get in there, this field fills with deer, you cannot get away from it. Don't, if it's a 1/4 acre or it's 4 acres, guys, don't think that you're getting away from that location when there's deer in there without getting busted. It's a low percentage chance. Not only are you getting busted there, it's a low percentage chance of just the deer making it to your area before dark. Those deer have been on their feet for, an hour and a half, 2 hours before dark, and working their way towards that location. So you got to watch how far you penetrate into a property, right? So maybe you get closer to the PM food sources, but maybe you're in a shot plot just off that. Maybe you're in a staging area. Catching them on the way to a staging area, something that you're not penetrating in too far. But there's so much more, because this is the I guess when it gets farther towards the pre-rut, what happens is, guys, let's say you did blow some habitat in there, and there's a lot of folks around the country that are wanting to place those does within 100 yards of those food sources, which is perfect. Problem is, you go in there and you do that hinge cutting, or you do that canopy release, started it right at the face of the food plot, opposite side of where you're hunting. 95% chance that most cases I go to, the stand, you can't shoot across the food plot anyway. So you're waiting for deer to come out here and just hoping that they, trip through a 2-acre food plot in front of you. That's where folks start putting screening and stuff like that to make funnels into areas. That is a separate video, but if you're putting screening, you're losing in an area, in a food plot, you're losing plantable area. And I'm not saying around it. All my food plots have screening around them. I'm saying dividing food plots up to funnel them into an area. If I start hearing about like shapes of food plots or screening in a food plot, or what that tells me is you're hunting the food plot. That's the only reason that you need to funnel deer past a certain location, is because you're trying to hunt that food plot. You shouldn't be there to begin with. So what we're looking at, guys, and don't get me wrong, there are certain food plots in certain locations that you can hunt and get away with because they're in that perfect spot, but there's just not a lot of them. So what this is right here, guys, is when that buck comes into pre-rut and rut situation, let's say, he comes in and he wants to scent check this doe bedding area, you better hope that food plot is very, very secure. What I find is usually they're not, right? They're backed up by big open hardwoods. They're next to a road. They're next to a property line, something like that. High risk, right, for these deer. And when he comes in here to cruise in to that area, he can't get in between securely. He can't get in between this food source and that doe bedding area and be able to scent check it. So you're hunting that on them southerly winds, and the only way he's going to scent check that is you're forcing him to go into that food plot. And if you're from a high pressure state, guys, I wouldn't do this in Iowa, let alone in Kansas, let alone in Michigan, right? So I don't do it here in Kentucky. You have to be able to give them an opportunity. What you do is you make a trail through here. You make a trail through here, you leave this, make an intersection, stand over here, make an intersection, stand over here, and you allow him a way to get through about 20 feet off from that or something like that, so he can cruise past that stand location, or he can cruise past that habitat, so it puts him here. And on those winds that you're hunting, a southerly wind, he's gaining that information as he cruises by. That puts him in the same location. But guys, it would shock you to know how much of this is going on. Even if the wind is good for you and good for him, it shocks you to know how much of that's going on. And those bucks never show their face out in those food sources. People hunt all year long, years upon years, and they're just 100 yards out of sight, and they're there. They're scent checking it, and they're living and dying by that nose, and you don't know what's going on. Or that line that we just added is not in there, and you're forcing them to come in that, and they're not going to scent check that, guys. If they can't get into those secure locations, maybe, but if they can't get through that food plot without scent checking that, they're going to scent check it, but it's going to be at dark. They'll circle back through, and then they'll start scent check it, something like that. What you'll find is, if you had a camera on the back side of this, they're more apt to scent check that on a north wind because they're getting all the information and they don't have to expose themselves out into a wide open food plot. Well, that north wind, you're not hunting it on a north wind in that situation. You're hunting it on a south wind, so you're not there at the same time. This one here, guys, bumps the percentage up a little bit. One of the things I want to really focus on with you is there's a million different stand locations, right? But I really like this here. Always looking for those, always trying to build them where you can come in. You don't have to walk past the food source or food plot, whether it's a food plot or a destination, whatever the case is. You don't have to walk past that. You're short here. Get into this stand location. These deer don't know you're in the world. And all of this habitat, when you get there, is all working for you on the right side. You're hunting this on a south wind, whether there's thermals involved in it or not. The wind's coming out of the habitat pockets. He's able to slide past. This might be a buck bedding situation that's further interior to the property, maybe 100, 150 yards from the stand, something like that. Here is where this stand blows up, pre-rut, something like that, right? And the reason for that is, guys, and you can make this a great early season stand too, throw water here, right? If he's bedded internal, and that's on a south wind, he cannot physically scent check all of this, man-made or natively placed habitat in that area. He can't scent check it unless it's on a south wind, put you and him there at the same time. If he's internal, he's got to come out here, put the wind at his back, get out here, and then turn and scent check these pockets when he leaves. So put water there, draw him out of here, and he's going to turn left or right, and then the wind is right for him after he comes out. Huge piece of puzzle, guys. 2 years in a row, 2 bucks, same stand location here on the farm. If I wouldn't have whiffed him on November 3rd last year at 27 yards, I'd have had 2 back-to-back years, same location, and that's what that is. That situation and that stand location is a water hole. Good early season, good pre-rut on, right? So one of the stand locations, guys, that I want to show you that's probably a very, very overlooked stand location. I get a lot of folks each and every year. The Southeast is notorious for this. And these strategies, guys, keep in mind, these strategies work all over the country. I get a lot of, back to this, I get a lot of guys from the Southeast, wherever north, wherever the case is, that say, this all sounds great, but that won't work in my area. Guys, a deer in Iowa is the same mentality, same trait, is built the same way. They live and die by the same motions, right? It's no different than you or I when we go to the grocery store or we get up in the morning. We all put our pants on one leg at a time. Situations like that, right? Sounds crazy, but there's so much to be said for learning. If you're in the Southwest, maybe learn from guys in the Midwest. If you're in the Midwest, there's a lot of things we can learn from guys in the Southeast, right? There's so much that I think we just kind of say, well, it doesn't work in my area, and go on and you search for a channel that only does stuff for Alabama because obviously it's all over food plot hunting and nothing else works, and that's the way we have to have it. Well, I'm here to tell you it works. I'm telling you it works. I've got clients all over the country that the most proficient hunters out there and the properties that are excelling are the properties that are understanding native deer movement and how they react to habitat improvements and how we can manipulate that movement. And it doesn't matter if you're in Iowa or Alabama, right? This situation right here, guys, is probably, like I said, probably the #1 overlooked situation. If you have a lease situation and you can't do a lot, you don't have time to do a lot, maybe you own the property, you just can't do a lot, is pulling that feeder or that food plot out here about 100 yards, 200 yards, whatever that case is from the stand, promoting a line of travel, making an intersection. Maybe you throw water at it, maybe you don't. Putting that stand here and letting them come in. So you're hunting this on these southerly winds. No different, it was a north wind, right? Just opposite. You're hunting this situation on them south winds. What you start looking at is that when he gets here, he's reading habitat as he gets there. He gets there, he's doing the same thing early season. He rounds, big success rate on early season stand location, because as soon as he rounds that and goes, now the wind is directly in his face. It doesn't matter if it's southwest, south, southeast, wherever that case is, right? He's getting all this information from this food plot and that feeder before he gets that. So a mulch trail, intersection, dynamite situation. Like I said, a lot of those, depending on the stand assemblage that you have on a property, maybe you throw water there. That is a situation right there, guys. I think it's overlooked tremendously. What you'll find on all of these, right, and we're going to do a video on this coming up. I call it the danger zone. What you'll find on all of these guys, this habitat representations here really highlights a good representation about why this isn't built right in front of the stand. So each and every year I've got to help folks understand that. I've got to help folks fix it. That was done and designed by somebody else, that we're right behind that habitat. Don't get me wrong, makes a great pinch funnel situation. Very hard to get in and very hard to get out of, because whether that's internal, whether that's built more for a secluded, maybe some buck bedding, something like that, or if the worst case scenario, it's built for volume. In other words, social groups, doe bedding. What happens is one wrong twig, one wrong clink of the bow on the way up, pulling it up, them deer know you're there, it blows the situation out. You've not only ruined that hunt, you've ruined hunts that connect to that for days and days to come. So make sure you get between it, right? Make sure you're finding it or building it between it. Give yourself some elbow room to get in and out of those stand locations. But at the end of the day, guys, let that area tell you before you even get out of the truck. You should know that you're looking for a southeast, a south wind stand. Don't find the location and try to make it. If you find the location, if you're in here scouting, you find this location, right? You need to find a way into this stand location from over here. You can hunt it, might be a great spot, but it's not accessed from here. It's accessed from somewhere else. So don't force it. Don't find the best spot on the farm that you can't hunt, because you're making it worse instead of making it better. Before you hang it, get into that location, find the tree, find your point of impact 25 yards out in front of the stand. Go for a walk each way. Make sure that habitat's correct. And by all means, look further than just sitting on the pot of the end of the rainbow, right? The pot of gold is what a lot of folks are doing, hoping and praying that that food plot situation pans out. It's very low percentage that he's going to be there to begin with. Very high percent chance that you're going to blow that situation out, and you can't hunt it multiple times. You know, these stand locations are best if you can hunt them when that good weather comes and that percentage for the weather is higher and they're sitting there cooking the entire time and you go in and get the job done, right? So don't overlook that situation. Look past the food plot mentality, and then you start looking into this and easy fixes for, like I said, a lot of the folks that are tuning in from the southeast. Really start understanding. Move that feeder out instead of sitting on it, because then you're doing what you're doing up here. You're blowing that area out. You're blowing it out when you get into it. You're blowing it out when you go to get away from it. Put the feeder out here, 100 yards. What you're doing is you're letting them create a way to J-hook into that wind, putting them there, putting that at that location when the wind is good for you and it's good for him. Huge overlooked situation right here, guys. Probably the number one easiest spot of all of this would be this situation right here. If I were in a spot that I could, you know, mulch a little food plot in, I could put a feeder. They represent the same thing. I would go in, find the stand location that I can get to, mow a trail or mulch a trail, weed whip a trail, set that feeder out here about 100 yards, gun situation, you can probably shoot it, put it out here and let them put this intersection at 25 yards, put that feeder or that food plot at 100 or 150, and make sure he can get behind it, placing him there at the same time. Huge overlooked stand location. I don't know why there isn't more of these around the country. But we're all sitting on top of the food plots in most cases, and that's why a lot of this doesn't happen. Respect the blueprint. Don't try to make it something that's never going to be, and by all means, hunt a spot or build a spot where he wants to be there when you're there, putting you there at the same time. Thanks, guys.